Hello, friends. Welcome back to Panel Choy and Pick of the Week, episode 88. I'm here with Jarrod. And Jarrod, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, Steve. Thank you.
Yeah, so we always like to start off with a question, and we will get to our picks and also Uncanny X-Men. Is it Uncanny X-Men? Uncanny
I
X-Men
think so.
102 and 103? Or 103
3 and 4.
and 4. 103 and 104. We'll get to that after our picks and pick of the week. But for this week, we thought we'd discuss where we get our comic books from, because I know not everyone has a comic book store near them, and they're looking for alternatives. But Jarrod, where do you get your comics from?
I actually get most of my comics from mycomicshop.com. They're probably the largest retailer of independent retailer of comic books in the States, I believe. Maybe below Mile High Comics. I'm not sure, but
Wow.
they're pretty big. But they started small and they grew and grew, and they have their own shipping and their own. They don't rely on Amazon. They don't rely on any of those mega corporations, and they do a great job packaging the books and really protecting them well. You pay for the shipping, but worth it if you want your books in good shape when they get there. Mainly because I don't have a really close by comic book shop that carries all the independent stuff that I like. There is one that has just your main Marvel DC stuff, but they're more of a gaming store anyways. They don't really carry too many comics, and everything else is a bit of a drive. So that's why I order them where I do.
I think when you factor in the cost of gas and the cost of your time to drive to a bookstore, I mean, if you're paying, I'm guessing, right around $10 for shipping.
Yeah, it can be anywhere from like 7 to 10 or 11. Yeah,
it's not too bad when you factor in the amount of money you'd spend in gas and your time to drive over to a bookstore. So that's really not too bad if you think about it.
Yeah,
shipped to your door. I think there is something to be said about the camaraderie that happens in the bookstore, but we don't always have great options, and they don't always have what we want. So it's tough. But yeah, so I get my books from either a local bookstore. The one I frequent the most is Astro Zombies. I get my books there, or I'll get them from Amazon or from the publisher directly digitally. So it's kind of nice to cut out the middleman and buy them directly from the website. And even publishers like Distillery, you can order physical copies from them, and they ship them to your door too.
Oh, nice.
And luckily, shout out to Distillery, we're on their review list, so we have the opportunity to read the books on the review site. But so of course now I try and buy every Distillery book I can just to pay it back. So
awesome.
I see Distillery books, I'll pick one up, and just to cancel out the ones we're reading for free. So I have a guilt thing, that kind of stuff.
Well, I certainly appreciate their giving you the access that we have.
Yeah, it's really cool. Shout out to Distillery. Thank you for that. So we'll get into our picks, and then, like I said, we'll get into the Uncanny X-Men books, the 2 issues after we're done with that. So we have quite a few this week, I think a fair amount. So I'll go ahead and jump in. So the first one on my list this week is Behemoth number 4. It's the last issue in this series. For those who don't know, Behemoth is a story of a Godzilla kaiju type of creature attacking a major city, and the people in the city are trying to stay alive. A little bit of a spoiler, but they end up being swallowed by the monster, and they're inside his stomach, I guess. And they encounter lots of interesting things. And I think, I'm not really big on kaiju, Godzilla's type of stuff. I think they did some interesting things inside the monster, kind of, what they're facing, from not only each other, but what's inside the stomach. And there were some moments when it seems like it took itself seriously, and it kind of buckled down to really be kind of like, wow, this is getting dark. And there's other times when it's really lighthearted, and kind of funny. And I guess those kind of stories are generally kind of more lighthearted. So I don't think they're really supposed to be taken too seriously. And it's not an original idea, really, but there's some fun moments to be had. This last issue was a little bit of a letdown. I wasn't a big fan how the story concluded. I won't get into why. I don't want to spoil it for anyone. But it was I don't know, kind of a letdown a little bit. And so yeah, overall, I think the story was pretty forgettable. I think it had some cool ideas, but overall, it was fine. So.
Mm. All right. Well, I hate to continue that trend, but I'm gonna. Um, I read the new Star Wars #1 from Marvel Comics, and this is a brand new ongoing series that they're starting. And this has the classic characters on the cover there, Luke and Han and Leia. And so I was like, okay, I'll check it out. And it was I don't know, I don't know if I'm getting jaded as I get older when it comes to Star Wars. That very well may well be the case, you know. So you can just call me the old man who just doesn't get it anymore or something. But I guess a little of the magic's just lost for me when it comes to some of this Star Wars material they come out with now. This particular issue is, it's supposed to take place like soon after the events of Return of the Jedi, and it it's basically a story about this one sector of space that's kind of just not going along with the whole New Republic thing, and they're causing trouble, and that's basically the story. And I was just a little bit bored with it. It was a little cliche. Nothing wrong. Like Phil Noto, the artist, is really good. He does the characters fairly well. So you definitely recognize him. And so there was nothing wrong with it per se. I think I'm just like I said, I think I'm just jaded, and I just not getting into it like I used to. I remember when Dark Horse Comics put out the Star Wars way back. I think it was Dark Empire when they started that, and I thought that was really fun and absolutely brilliant. And maybe if I were to pick it up today and read it again, I wouldn't be so enthused. I don't know. Maybe it's a nostalgia thing, but for me, this issue didn't quite do it for me.
Yeah, the Marvel Star Wars stuff. So on one hand, you pay a lot for the IP. You want to use it. You want to tell lots of stories. I'm sure
Sure.
it's Disney, so
Yeah.
Disney owns Star Wars. And I think what I struggle with is I actually like to try the Star Wars books. So like the Charles Soule Darth Vader series was really good. But I think sometimes there's like I'll go to the shop and there's like 5 or 6 new books, like new Star Wars, like, and I think at some point it's just too much. Like have 2 or 3 ongoings, or maybe 2 ongoings and a mini series now and then to tell like an offshoot kind of story. But I think there's just so many of them that of course it's going to get watered down, and it just won't be as good when you have so many different stories being told all at once. But I guess it sells. I'm assuming it does. I should look at the sales numbers, but yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of Star Wars stuff.
Yeah. But this is supposed to be like the main, you know, the main
All-Stars.
series, the main. It's got the big stars on the cover and stuff like that, and you would think it would be a little bit more special. And I don't know, maybe for somebody else who just recently saw the movies. Somebody younger who recently saw the movies, and um, it would be more exciting to them. But didn't do it for me this series. I don't think I'll be continuing on.
That's two in a row.
Two in a row.
Two in a row. All right. We'll keep it going. The next one for me is called Exquisite Corpses, #1. It's by Image Comics. So the setup for this one is this is revealed in the first few pages. I won't give too much away, but it's basically the 13 most powerful and rich families in America every few years battle it out for control. To do this, they pick a kind of a sleepy town somewhere. They seal off the town and they use the town and the people in the town as kind of just fodder for their battles. Each family picks kind of the nastiest, deadliest person they can find, not someone who necessarily is associated with the family, just these really over the top kind of, characters who one guy has a big hammer and one person likes to blow things up and that kind of thing. So it kind of goes through the whole gamut of this whole setup and the town being sealed off and introduces you to the different characters. And of course, if you have a battle like this, there's other side bets going on. There's other shenanigans happening behind the scenes with these rich families who just want to, they're out of touch. They want to entertain themselves and have no concern for who gets hurt or killed in the meantime. It's kind of a mix between The Purge, Hunger Games. I don't know if you've seen kind of reminded me of Smoke and Aces. I don't know if you saw that movie. Just kind of a bunch of random killers being assembled and going to fight it out. So that's pretty much in a nutshell what it is. It was okay. I heard a lot of really people just over the moon on this one, and it was good. It was fine. I think I'll continue reading issue 2. I think there's some good setup here, but maybe I went in with too high of expectations, hearing all the different reviews of other the other reviews I saw. But I mean, it was okay. It was a good setup, but it's we'll see. I mean, it was overall, like I said, really no complaints about it. It just wasn't pick of the week material.
All right. Next up, I have a collection, a throwback. Something I always wanted to read, but I never got around to, and I ended up getting it as part of a buy 2 get 1 free deal. So I picked up this massive tome called Box Office Poison by Alex Robinson, and this book was serialized back in the 90s, and then this collection came out in 2001. It collected all the individual stories, and this is a self a self-published thing. Well, he published it through Top Shelf Production, but it was he's a writer-artist, Alex Robinson. He basically details him and his friends in New York City. They're the typical starving artists. They're trying to make it in the comic book industry, or like one of his friends is trying to be a writer for magazines, and they're in the right place at the time to do this. And they're struggling to get by. They struggling to pay the rent and all that stuff. And they the story is very personal. It's very slice of life. So if you like that kind of thing, it's going to be right up your alley, because it is very, very slice of life. So it Robinson handles the material very well. He's a good draftsman, a good artist, and his artwork is a little bit cartoony, but not too much. So it's all in black and white, and it flows well. He tells a good story. He has pretty good dialogue. I thought sometimes it did drag a little with how thick it was, and I thought I was like, okay, when am I going to get through this part so I can find out what happens next? But for the most part, though, it was very pleasant. You end up liking a lot of the characters. You end up getting to know them really well. And there is a neat story in here about an aging comic book creator who got shafted by the big companies. And that is a story that comes up a lot in a lot of these independent books like this. And because they want to bring attention to these bad practices that both DC and Marvel had back in the day, in the 30s, 40s, and 50s and stuff, where they would force people to just sign contracts and sign away their rights to the characters they created. And it's something that Alan Moore has written a lot about. It's something that other people have written about as well. And so it is another story like that, and there's a lot of social commentary on comic book conventions and people looking down at comic book creators and stuff like that, and why you're wasting your time with those funny books and stuff like that. And so it was very compelling in that manner. It's and it really hits home in a lot of places for some comic book readers who or creators who would want to be interested in that field. So overall, I recommend it. I think it's a pretty good book, a pretty good look into just the starving artist motif, slice of life type of style of story.
That sounds right on my alley.
I think you would like it. Yeah.
I don't think I've ever heard of it. And it's amazing when you read a book like that from you said like the 90s and how much different it is now.
Yeah.
And Image was a thing about in 93, 94. So it did change things, but you look at the landscape now, it's completely different with not that it's easier necessarily to break through and to have success because, DC and Marvel still own a good portion of the market, but there's a lot of other options, a lot of other avenues now to tell your story.
Yeah. One key thing you could definitely point out with the time period, you could tell it was pre 9/11. There was you could just the way the attitudes of the characters and stuff. There was I have a feeling this story would have been a lot different after 9/11 if he had written it just after.
It's kind of amazing how, not to get off on a side tangent, but it's kind of amazing how different things were and how that event changed everything. That time period changed everything.
Yeah, it sure did. Yeah.
Okay, so the next one. So that's sounds like it was a good one.
Yeah. There we go.
All right. So the next one is I Was a Fashion School Serial Killer. Number 2, this is by Image Comics. So this one, the setup for this one is there's a female young woman, late 20s or early 20s, late teens, who is a serial killer, and she goes into fashion school where she is a serial killer who she uses the people's bodies that she kills as art for her work. So she creates clothing and articles of clothing and decoration and stuff. And it's kind of like a Dexter, a female Dexter who goes to fashion school. And the inner dialogue can be funny because you know what she's capable of, and people kind of dismiss her and think she's a joke because she can kill them all. So the setup, like the novelty of the story, I think is cool. But I'm starting to wonder what more is there? Like, where's the substance to the story? It seems like we're in a cycle of, the killer has some funny dialogue. She doesn't want friends, doesn't want anything to do with anyone else. People try to be her friend. Those people get hurt. And then she goes out and kills the people who hurt these people who want to be her friend. And she creates art from their bodies and rinse and repeat. I think so. I'm hopeful with this one. I hope there's more to it than that because it just feels like I hope something comes up. There's some type of, someone who comes to kind of challenge her or to push her in some way because right now it just feels like she's can do whatever she wants. And I guess that's kind of like what Dexter was in a way. But yeah, I'm just waiting for some meat on the bone. I mean, it's a nice setup, but we talked before about setups that they, it's a cool idea, but to build around that idea and kind of flesh things out and make it into something else. So I'm hopeful it'll start to evolve.
Is this a limited or regular series?
I think this is a limited, but I can double check.
Well, if it is limited, you definitely hope it will evolve
Yeah.
rather quickly.
Yeah. Let's see.
But,
It looks like it's a five issue run. So
okay, so you're doing all right, yeah.
so I'm hoping something happens here that, something changes, but we'll see.
All right. Next up, I got Mouse Guard, Dawn of the Black Axe, #2, from Archaea Studios and Boom Studios. And this is once again written by David Peterson and drawn beautifully by Gabriel Rodriguez. And another beautiful looking book. This is it's only a 3-issue miniseries, and so the next issue will be the conclusion. You can tell that this second issue is the kind of the that the second act. It's that downswing. It's things aren't looking great for our hero. He's questioning what he's doing. He's all those fantasy tropes that you get. It's in this issue, and but it's done well. It's very beautiful, and it just continued the story on from the first issue very well, and I really enjoy this series. If you never read it before, I heavily recommend picking up the earlier series, but this one can be read on its own. This particular Dawn of the Black Axe. It's a kind of a prologue to everything, and it can definitely be read on its own. And just can't say enough about the artwork in here. I just really enjoy it. It's just gorgeous to look at, and it also is in that weird format. It's like magazine width, but very short as well. So it's like a square. But so be prepared for that if you want to store them somewhere. But
yeah, it's getting boards and bags and boards of those weird sizes can be kind of challenging.
Yeah, it just kind of came in a magazine size board, and it kind of just sits at the bottom of the bag, But yeah, really cool series, really cool issue.
There's some more plots, Run and roll. All right, so well, the next one, I didn't have a pick this week, but if I did, this probably would have been it, which is from the Invincible universe, Battle Beast #1.
Yeah.
So I don't remember much about Battle Beast. I read Invincible, I don't know, 8 years ago. So I don't really remember much about the character, but it's basically he is a Lobo type of character who is traveling the universe looking for someone to fight and someone to kill him, someone worthy enough to kill him. So he wants kind of the honor of being killed by someone more powerful. And it's like a Lobo character, but without the sense of humor. He takes himself very seriously, which is fine. He goes around looking for people to fight, and it's a romp. I mean, it's just him being an asshole, basically, just like looking for people to fight him.
Yeah.
And it's okay. Like it was fine. The artwork is beautiful by Ryan Otley, and it was a fun read. I do wonder, because this is an ongoing series, where this is going to go. Like I'm guessing we're going to see Invincible and have a crossover somehow. but I wonder what the plan is for this. This seems more like a mini series type of story, but it's Robert Kirkman. He knows what he's doing for the most part, and so we'll see. But it was fun. It wasn't. It was the closest for me this week to be the pick, but it didn't have that kind of. It didn't have enough for me to kind of give it that crown this week. So, but it was fun. It was fun with great artwork. It was just a romp. So,
Hey, sometimes you need a good rump.
yeah.
Cool. Next up, I got Absolute Superman #7, which I think was your pick last week, Steve. And I can definitely see why you picked it, because another well done book. And I almost picked it myself this week, but I'll explain why I picked the other one when we get there. But yeah, this is so cool and so interesting. How you have an Absolute Superman book and there's no Superman in the book.
Yeah.
And it's still compelling. It's still interesting. It's still telling a story that it's mainly self-contained. It will have ultimate ties to the main story going on in the book right now. But I liked how, even though it didn't continue on the story we were getting, it subtly ties into it, but it was just readable on its own, and it didn't feel like a fill-in issue. It didn't feel like, oh, we're putting this out to buy some time for our main event or something like that. No, this felt so integral to the whole thing, and it was so interesting, the story of Brainiac coming to the fore as a villain. You get it all. You get why he is the way he is. You get everything, and it was a fascinating ride to find out how he became what he was. And you get this little hint that he's not all there. He's really messed up, but you also get the hint that he's also he might be being manipulated. There's hints in there of something else going on, and I really like how Jason Aaron teased a lot of little things in there that I think you could miss if you weren't paying attention.
Mm-hmm.
So well done book, and yeah, I'm still stunned that this is the best Absolute book out there.
Yeah. 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 When Jason Aaron was chosen, I like Jason Aaron. I think he, like his Punisher Max run, he's done a few other things that I liked.
Yeah.
I was a little
Sculpt,
surprised.
Sculpt, right? Yeah.
Was it the Thor when he had the God Killer? I think that part of that was in the last movie. But anyway, yeah. When he was chosen for Superman, I thought that's kind of a weird choice. It doesn't. I never really. He felt like more of a Batman type of writer.
Yeah. He did Conan a while back too.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
I think he's done a really good job with it. I'm impressed. Really great artwork too.
Yeah, pretty good. I can't pronounce the guy's name. It's Gian Domenko or something like that.
Yeah, beautiful artwork. All right, so I think we can give Superman an applause. All right, so I have two more before we get into Jarrod's pick into X-Men. So World Tree number 14. This is a comic I've been reading since the beginning of the podcast. I think I picked up number 3. It was like the first book I picked up when I started reading comics again for the podcast. So this series is it's weird because when it rolls, it'll kind of get momentum. It'll roll for an issue or two, and then the momentum is stopped by something. It just kind of goes off track, and I haven't yet felt things kind of come together to make those like sidebars make a whole lot of sense. but this one is another one that just kind of it's in a different time, it's in a different place. It's with characters that we haven't seen in a while, or at least time wise we haven't seen. It's probably been a couple of issues, but this is a pretty. I think this book is like every 2 months. Sometimes it's longer, and it's just hard to keep track. And
Uh,
I think sometimes there's sometimes when I think there's something really great going on here, they're building to. So I'm holding on, even though I was really confused with this one. The last few pages were pretty cool. Were pretty neat. I think it some interesting things are happening, and I think when this series gets close to wrapping up, I'm not sure when that'll be, but when it does, I think it's going to read a lot better when you can read it one after another. Because I think when you read it and you have so much time in between the books, it's hard to keep track. There's a lot of different people and characters, and it jumps around a lot. So I think it's hard to kind of keep track. So I'm hoping that this is all going to make sense at some point, because it doesn't make sense to me just yet. But like I said, I think it's harder because it's so inconsistent. But I mean, the artwork's great. It's I guess that there's some really great ideas going on, and so we'll see. I'm holding on. Holding on. Every time I say I'm going to quit, there's a really great issue, and I'm hooked again. So I just said I'm just going to stick with this one. So I'm on board. So the last one
cool.
for me before we get into Jared's pick is One for Sorrow, number one. This is by Distillery. This is another one that was close to being the pick. It just didn't have that. It didn't have that punch to really set it over the top. So it's a kind of gas lamp style story. Did you read this one, Jared?
I think so. Yeah, a while back. Yeah.
I think I remember you talking about it, and it's kind of has a Jack the Ripper feeling to it. There's a killer. There's a few different threads here. There's another masked killer. There's an underground card game. There's a woman who claims to communicate with spirits, who's may or may not be a kind of a con woman, and they're all connected somehow. I won't reveal how they're all connected, but the artwork is very clean, very neat. The story is very well paced, and it was more than enough to get me to continue to book two. And I really like the stories in this setting with the gas lamp type of environment in the UK, in London, and there's a lot of things happening, and I think that really serves for the bigger and longer books. I think this one's 60 something
Mm.
pages. It really does benefit from having a long issue like this and the different format to really tell a story that it's complex, but it doesn't feel overwhelming. And things do start to come together at the end of the issue. So yeah, I think there's some fun things going on here, and lots of different threads, but not too much to where you're completely confused. So I'm on to to issue two.
Yeah. It is issue 2 out.
I believe so. Yeah, I have to check.
Yeah.
But I believe so.
I'll have to get that. Yeah, I enjoyed that first issue as well. It was really cool.
And the pick is all yours, Jared.
Yeah. Well, staying on the distillery train here. Warm Fusion number 3 was my pick of the week this week, and it just barely beat out Absolute Superman because it had a really nice conclusion. It's a 3-issue series, and which a lot of distillery books seem to be that way. And the third issue, it wrapped up and delivered what it promised in the since the beginning, since the first issue. And I just really like the setting. It's kind of that dystopian future type setting, kind of a Blade Runner without the androids type setting. And it there's like mentioned, the sci-fi in it is mentions of like life extending drugs, and there's a lot of medical sci-fi involved in the book, and the there's a corporation trying to advance things in their way, which of course doesn't always sit well with some of the other general populace, and they're trying to get the mayor in their pocket and stuff like that. So it's all it takes place in a New York City that's kind of isolated from the rest of the United States at this point, in this imagined future. And I really liked how this issue came together because it kind of brought together a lot of very Shakespearean type themes, with the family and the father and son and that kind of family dynamic in not a kingdom but a corporation instead. Kind of like a Succession type of dynamic from HBO there, but not as obvious as that was, and it was only really obvious in this last issue that came about in that manner, and I liked how it came about. I like the dark artwork that is in this book. It suits the setting very well, and it has some pretty cool, almost gruesome fight scenes towards the end here that really fit well with the story as well. It wasn't any kind of gratuitousness just for the sake of it. It actually made sense in the direction it went, and I just thought they wrapped it up very nicely. And I thought I was like, yeah, that's a pretty cool ending to a story that was pretty cool the whole way. So I really kudos for the creative team on Warm Fusion for pulling this off, and for Distillery for the great package like they always have. So just good stuff.
It's definitely on my list to read that one. Yeah, I mean the whole Blade Runner kind of setup is my thing. So
Yeah,
I love that kind of stuff.
the vibe, I would say. The
Yeah.
vibe is there. Yeah.
Nice, very nice. And that was the last issue.
Yes, as far as I know. Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice to have different types of stories.
Yeah. 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 Everything from Distillery has been quite actually unique in its. They're not repeating themselves. They have some variety.
Mhm. Yeah, it doesn't always work for me. I don't always like things that all their books, but they're taking chances. I can respect that. There's a lot of kind of like Mad Cow or Mad Cave is another one that just tells some off the wall stories. So appreciate that. So for those of you who are reading Uncanny X-Men with us, the reason we chose this is because we wanted to choose something to read along with everyone would be free to read every week, and you can find this on Libby or on Libby or Hoopla.
Hoopla.
Yeah. So if you'd like to read along with us, this week we are reading issues 103 and 104, and we're getting close. We're starting to learn more about Phoenix, so now's the time to jump on with us. And it's actually called the All New, All Different X-Men. Read the titles now that I'm looking at the book. But yeah, so it's interesting being here on the cusp of what I'm guessing. I haven't looked it up. The Dark Phoenix saga, I'm guessing, starts very soon because we're gearing up towards something. It feels like we're building towards something big.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I'm wondering because at some point we're gonna have to run into the Hellfire Club and start that whole Dark Phoenix stuff going on. But it's kind of funny because like we know what's coming because this is a reread for us from a long time ago. But but we're also so I feel like we're getting teased because that was the cool storyline of the day back then, and and but it's like it's coming so slow but there's also a lot of other stuff going on in these issues. It's not like, and so you see why it's taking its time and developing the way it is. But, pretty cool.
Yeah, this is the first time we've seen Magneto in a while.
Yeah. It's kind of funny. We like the number 103. We start off with all those little elves helping the big elf.
That was really strange. Yeah,
That was weird.
That was weird. I did not. That was not on my bingo card.
And then, yeah, and then the Seneschal there, Eamon. He's kind of under the gun from. He's being forced to do things by who was it, Black Tom in the Juggernaut, what have you. But he tells them about Eric the Red again. We're learning about this guy again, this opponent for this bad guy for Cyclops. And we found out it's a little something new, that Nightcrawler can kind of blend in the shadows. I didn't know that before.
I didn't forget all about that.
Yeah, I didn't remember that at all. We get a little bit of Storms with her ability to pick locks, and I thought that was interesting. And we get Colossus taking offense to the word broad. I thought that was funny.
Broad. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny stuff. But we also get a hint that Eric the Red also has a boss who's, giving him orders and telling him what to do. And so the plot thickens in that manner.
When Magneto showed up, I started paying more attention to what everyone's made out of, like who has metal, and a lot of them have metal. So it's they're at a disadvantage for sure.
Yeah, yeah, that was. I really enjoyed the on number 104 the opening page art. I thought it was really a really cool piece of artwork that Dave Cockrum put out, and so that was pretty neat. We find out that Charles and Moira were students together. The funny thing is, I always pictured Charles Xavier as such an old man, but he's not. He's actually not. I know that's partly because of the movies, but he's actually not an old guy at all, and it's just that most of the X-Men are younger, except for Wolverine. We find out is not young at all, but later on. But we were introduced to Madrox, the Multiple Man, in this issue.
Yeah,
and he didn't do much. And I was like, I didn't realize he was that old. Like, he's been around that long.
I didn't either. I totally forgot about that he was that old.
Yeah.
It is interesting to see the different characters, and not only the X-Men, but Magneto too. How much they've evolved over the years. I mean, I know this is 40 years ago, probably.
Yeah,
maybe longer. But to see how different all their interactions are now, and the different, like Magneto now, from last I checked anyway, he's more of a hero type of. At least he works with the X-Men. He's not their arch nemesis anymore. But it's interesting to see how different things are now and how they were portrayed back then.
Yeah, it is interesting, and I mean that's in the case of Magneto. It kind of makes sense that he would have evolved a little bit over the years, but yeah, it's really it's interesting because in this issue he's kind of a cookie cutter bad guy in this issue. He's like he's mad and he's like, I'm going to defeat you, and he's
Yeah.
showing his power and stuff like that. But he doesn't get more, I guess, more in depth look until later on in the
He's
series.
he's gonna be Lord of all the world.
Yeah,
Yeah. Pretty okay, buddy. Like, all right.
yeah,
But yeah, he was. I like another thing. The kind of the monologue he has when he introduces himself. They pronounce, they announce what they have planned, and their all the extent of their interactions with each other. It's all just kind of silly now, I guess, looking back. And nothing is left to the imagination. Everything is explained. They repeat everything. Oh, he is hurling my lightning bolts back at me, and instead of just being left for you to figure it out. It's all very interesting to see how different things are now, and I love Cockram's art. I
yeah.
think his artwork is. I
It's
don't know if it's
it's
excellent.
pretty cool. It's pretty cool. Yeah, yeah. And we also get that question. What is Mutant X?
Mhm.
What's that all about? I don't remember much of that. I
I
think
don't either.
it has. I mean, obviously, it must have something to do with Professor X. Now that I'm thinking about it, um, is that because I know he has a son somehow, somewhere, and I
He's-
don't know. I don't remember whose son it is. I don't think it's Mora's, even though
hmm,
maybe it is. I
I
don't know.
don't. It's been a while.
But
So,
but this is the issue where I think we're first introduced to that concept, and yeah, at the end we get something about a princess. So that's another mystery to be answered in future issues.
lots of things going on.
So much.
Yeah,
Yeah.
lots of things going on. There's a ton that happens in each issue. But like we there's a lot of dialogue too because they explain everything that's happening. Yeah, it's a lot of story though.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the thing. It's like there's a lot of over explanation, but there's also a lot of story packed into those little 20 pages, and it's kind of funny how because you can go through a comic like one of the ones I read today. Like it literally took me 5 minutes to read it because it's just all pictures. There's very little
Yeah.
exposition. There's very little dialogue, and whereas one of these issues, it takes you 15 minutes or so to get through it all if you're actually stopping and reading all the dialogue and stuff.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of story. There's a lot of events going on from one page to the next.
Even one panel to the next, there's a lot that goes on.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, they take me a good about 20 minutes to read,
yeah,
just because all the dialogue and all the things going on. But it's fun to go back and revisit it because
yeah. And if you think
classics.
about it, if you were picking this up at the convenience store, you know, and you're making your parents spend a quarter for it, um, you want to be able to sit with that comic for a long time and get as much out of it as possible.
Hmm.
I think that was their goal back then. Was to give people something for their money, and I think they did back then. I think that was it.
Hmm. That's a good point. Yeah, I think that was probably a goal. I think especially back then where they valued more of they viewed storytelling in comics a little differently,
Hmm.
and I think they had kind of more of a it's the only way I can kind of a more of a blue collar mindset with to give value for to provide value for
Yeah,
your dollar or for your quarter or whatever it was.
yeah,
So
that's a
yeah, I
good
can see
point.
yeah,
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah,
escapism.
yeah, it was escapism, and it was and I think they knew that. it was definitely geared towards kids, but it was also geared to catch the eye at a stand because they didn't have the direct market that they have now.
Mhm.
And so if it was something like a book today where it's very art focused and very um, letting the art tell the story rather than having it be explained to you like it was back then, I don't think it would have had the same appeal in the venue that it was offered at.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know?
I can agree with that. I do think it was geared more towards children, um, more towards younger people, but I don't think it was something that older people couldn't be interested in. I just think it was
Oh, absolutely.
kind of because there's some very mature themes going on.
Yeah.
But if like when I was reading it, I was probably, I don't know, 10 or 11, and I didn't really get a lot. I mean, I just enjoyed the characters and the interactions and the villains and things like that. But as you get older, you start to see those things and you start to understand kind of the subtext. But yeah, back then I just enjoyed reading these characters and having their battles, and so yeah, it's funny how layered it can be.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. That's good comic book making, if you ask me, because if you can appeal on different layers to different age groups, then I think you're doing a pretty good job.
Yeah, I also remember, I think it was Stan Lee who made it a point of avoiding. I think he was one of the people who avoided politics or getting involved in kind of to make it something for everyone to
Yeah,
read
right.
and for everyone to kind of enjoy, and to not have kind of an agenda. In the stories, I'm sure there's messages in the stories that they were trying to convey in the time, and I don't think you can help that. I think whenever you write a story and whatever time period you're in, there's going to be some of that. I don't think you can really get around that just because it's a product of its time. But I do remember him saying that he tried to his best to avoid that kind of thing, just to make it just welcoming to everyone who
Yeah.
wanted to read and wanted to read about these heroes and doing the right thing, and that kind of being the backbone of the story, rather than trying to convey some kind of message of the story.
Yep. Very true.
Yeah, good stuff. So two more again next week.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Well, cool. Yeah, another issue in the box. Yeah, I Battle Beast. It was close to being my pick, and then I thought one for Sora. I read that at the last minute. I thought this is pretty good, but it just didn't have the umph to get over the finish line.
The oomph. Yeah.
Well, cool. Well, until next time, Jared, where can people find you?
You can find me at the Fantasy Thinker YouTube channel. You can find me on the Speculative Speculation podcast. And you can find me on the film chewing with the Oscar Project. And a couple other conversations here and there.
Yeah. Yeah, the Oscars project's been fun. Patton goes on. I think it goes live in a week or two. Midnight Cowboy just went live, and after that we have French Connection, which I did watch
Yes.
that. That was an interesting.
You already did?
Yeah, it'll be an interesting conversation for sure.
Nice.
Yeah,
Excellent.
but yeah, so we'll get to that. And cool. Yeah, so that's it for us this week. If you'd like to connect with us, there is a link in the description. You can send us a message directly. Let us know if you're reading along with us, or if you'd like to tell us, give us a recommendation or any feedback. We'd love to hear about it. And yeah, you can also join our forums at patreon.com and come and say hello there. We have all sorts of conversations going at all times. And once we finish reading the X-Men series, I'm sure we'll be looking for something else to read that's available on Hoopla or on Libby. If you have any recommendations, we'd love to hear it. And until then, we hope you have a great day and hope you find your pick.
Bye-bye.